But hello and welcome back to another episode of Heels on the Court. Today we kind of gave a little sneak peek on our Instagram about how we had something big this week, and we have our first guest. We have John Hartofilis joining us, the CEO, founder, and host of Gen Z Hoops. It's all about the Gen Z basketball coaching and sports business, where you interview professional players, coaches, and executives from all across the sports industry. John, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really awesome to have you here.
Thank you both so much for having me. I'm really excited about this. I know when we connected, I was just really excited, just to get to talk to both of you, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. So I know that a lot has happened in the sports industry. I mean, just yesterday we've got the AFC and the NFC championships going on. We'll probably talk about that at some point, just a little bit, like go Chiefs, go Bucks, I guess. I don't know how I feel about the Bucks, but a lot happening in the basketball world, which is kind of what we wanted to talk to you about with the James Harden trade and what's going on with the Nets and the Rockets and everything. So just to kind of kick it off, I mean, we saw that the whole trade and all of the kind of different details about it, with the Nets having to surrender control of their first round pick for the next 7 drafts to acquire James Harden and partner him with KD and Kyrie. I mean, from your opinion, who in the trio is going to embrace the third wheel status, like Chris Bosh when he went to Miami to be with James and Dwayne Wade, or like Ray Allen did in Boston alongside Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce?
It's interesting for sure to think about, especially when you talk about 3 players that have been so ball dominant in the past. What I would try to mention, that a lot of people, I feel like everyone kind of focuses on the whole one ball, not enough to go around. These guys they've all filled the role in some way, shape, or form in their career of not being the number one option. James Harden is the only one that he's 7 years removed from that, being the sixth man. So for him, it's difficult for me to make that case because of such a long time ago, even though he has done it before. But for Kyrie in 2016, that was obviously LeBron's team that won the championship. For Kevin Durant in Golden State, he might have been the most talented player and their leading scorer, but there were a lot more pieces. There were a lot of other great shooters on that team that needed the ball as well. So they've all in some way been able to adapt to that. If they're as good friends as we think they are, and they're obviously brilliant basketball minds to have gotten to that level, I think they will be able to make it work. I definitely see the problems that could happen, but I hate when people say they can't make it work. Like, why can't they? If they're so good at basketball, how can we just write them off and say they're not going to be able to figure it out? These are 3 of the best basketball minds, 3 of the best shooters ever, right? Just when it comes to straight shooting, there's no denying that. So when you have just all that talent, is it difficult to make it work? Of course, it might be difficult, but I can't see. There's no reason for me to say definitively it won't happen. And I think that when you ask the question of who will take that third wheel role, in most cases it's the least talented of the 3, which in this case would probably be Kyrie Irving. Just because I have James Harden and Kevin Durant having been former MVPs and just having been so explosive scoring wise. Kyrie's never been the best player on a championship team, or a championship contending team. Right? After Kyrie left LeBron to kind of prove that, and he had a lot of difficulties doing that in Boston and Brooklyn the last 2 or 3 years. So KD and James Harden have been that before. So that being the case, I think if it's going to be anyone, it probably should be Kyrie. I'm not sure how it's going to work with him, and we've seen the last few weeks what his reaction to just playing basketball has been. So I don't know how it's going to be playing basketball with under these circumstances, but definitely something that as a New Yorker, even though I'm mostly a Knicks fan, it's something I can't wait to see.
Totally. And I mean, I kind of giving a little bit of background about myself, and Sam can probably give a little bit of background about himself, but currently right now I'm in an NBA kind of build-up program. It's called the Future Sales Stars program, and basically they're teaching us everything there is to know about partnership sales and ticket sales within the NBA, working with the league office remotely. It's been great. And we've got our group chat going, and as soon as this talk was happening, everybody was like, so a Nets championship, what's going on? We've got the trio happening. But yeah, you brought up Kyrie kind of being the lowest player out of the 3 and kind of being at the bottom of the stack. How much can the Nets even count on Kyrie after the messy exits in Cleveland and Boston and the rocky start to this season? We saw the back-to-back losses, the cratered out defense, and how Kyrie took to Instagram telling fans not to be worried because he's not worried, and everything that's been going on lately with him.
Of course. So I mean, I would say that they really can't depend on him 100% at all. There's guys like, I mean, James Harden, Kevin Durant. They come to work every single day. They don't really have a history of having issues like that. I think that Kyrie Irving has been painted in a little bit of a negative light by the media in a way that I don't think is completely fair to him. But in the same breath, he's really not helping his case that much when he's acting the way he has been acting recently. I remember listening to Kevin Durant and him on the Boardroom podcast and the Boardroom University, and they were talking about how he's been painted in such an unfair way, and how he donates so much to charity, does all these amazing things. And I don't think it's a reflection on Kyrie Irving as a person, but there's definitely something off on his why and like what he enjoys about playing the NBA. There's definitely something that's off there, and it leads to him being MIA from games, which is something that's very uncommon, especially in someone of his caliber. So it's really a situation where, I mean, it's funny. Like, you ask anyone this, everyone kind of just says, I don't know. It's like, it's the one thing where like everyone unanimously just has no idea what to make of, because it's all in Kyrie Irving's head, and he's in control fully of what he could do. Now, if he gets in control, will that lead to a championship? I wouldn't say that Kyrie Irving holds the keys to the Nets winning a championship, because so much more goes into play than that. But he definitely holds the keys to his own brain and getting himself in playing shape and being able to hopefully contribute to the Nets winning a championship.
Totally. And I mean, I guess now that we're kind of counting Kyrie at the bottom of the list, who do you think among Durant and Harden has the personality to lead the way of the pecking order?
Ooh, that's interesting. That's funny, because I always hear about the problems with the Nets. Everyone always talks about the problems and who's gonna be third. Everyone always talks about that, but no one really talks about who's gonna be the alpha. Just because there's so many. It's funny. Most other super teams, you hear about that more often. With this one, it's more been about what can go wrong other than what can go right.
Right.
But in terms of when it comes to talent and who's done it before, Kevin Durant's just done more than James Harden has. James Harden has shown. Leadership, yeah, it's tough. Let me take that back. James Harden has shown that he can be the best player on the team, in the same way that Kevin Durant has. But I mean, even in this with the Rocket, with the Thunder, he's not with the Nets. He's not leading them in scoring, right? It's Kevin Durant that's doing that. He's not. James Harden, I don't think, is the spokesperson for the team. It's Kevin Durant. James Harden isn't the leader in the locker room. I would imagine it's Kevin Durant, just because that's the way it's kind of always been with him. So I would think it falls on the shoulders of KD more to lead the team. But Harden definitely, I mean, he's been facilitating great recently. He really is kind of the engine maybe that gets them started with his playmaking and with obviously his gravity in terms of pulling defenders away from the rim. But I would put more on KD's shoulders in terms of he's definitely more of that. He's definitely more of that alpha and that leader for that team than I would think Harden is.
I definitely agree with that. Sam, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you're talking about a guy that has obviously had tremendous success in a role in the NBA championship with a team that was already a super team with the Warriors. And I think when you look back at that run when they had Kevin Durant in Golden State, it was really they rallied around him that season until he got injured. And so I think that's something to look out for, that he's always been able to take over a game, take over a team. I think he's a pretty easy personality to get along with. But I think the big thing for me that stood out in the off season when kind of this whole situation was starting to unfold is that Steve Nash was hired, and then we hear talks about, oh, we don't have a head coach here in Brooklyn. This is a joint effort. And to me as a coach, I kind of was like blown away by that. I was like, well, that kind of really doesn't sound like such a good thing to be saying about your head coach. But the more that I've thought about it, it's a situation where I've coached AAU with a bunch of really good kids, ESPN top 50 players, and I've had that experience. And sometimes really good coaches, what they do is they step back. So the more that I've kind of thought about that, the less that's become a concern for me. So I'm not worried about that as much as I was at the beginning. But I'm curious, John, what you think about those comments about Steve Nash and sort of what position that puts him in as the named head coach, but are they really treating him like one?
Yeah, definitely from the sound of that comment, and just, I mean, the way they've been playing so far, you don't really see on the court there be that many issues. There's of course the issues with Kyrie, which I would imagine have a role in play a role in that. And I mean, the next few weeks you might see so much with maybe James Harden or other guys on the team acting up in certain ways, which we'll have to wait and see on that. But in terms of from a coaching perspective, whether it's having coached Xavier or in any other capacity, I mean, I would say that the biggest thing I know is, or I hear all the time as a young coach in the high school space or anywhere, is you can't be their friend. And I try to, it's a fine line between, getting too close to the players who are going to take advantage of you and, being an authoritarian. And obviously, at the professional level, it's totally different where there's no the French. It's a business. It's not the same. It's not the same way. And being authoritarian, like the business is totally different. So that's not really something I can speak on in that sense. But it does hold true where it's okay. How much control does Steve Nash have? Like, he still needs control over the team. That's just plain and simple. And does he have that when guys are making comments like that? Because from a comment like that, and I'm sure if that comment was made then, can't imagine how much has changed since then, because it's not like he's made a comment. There've been comments made kind of fixing that where it's like, oh well, Coach Nash is doing this. Like, I haven't heard that either. So being that we haven't heard anything that kind of corrects that comment, I would imagine that still holds true. And there's nothing been shown in the court to prove otherwise. So I mean, it might mean that we'll really find out come April and May when the playoffs kick in and we see, okay, are they ready to play playoff basketball? Because that's well-coached teams are the ones that can play playoff basketball. We'll find out then. But until then, we just have to hope that they are able to work it out and be on the same page, because a collaborative effort sounds like, of course, it should be a collaborative effort. Basketball it's a team sport, and coaches should work with their players to get the best out of them, and vice versa, just to do what's best for the team. But when you hear it the way that Kyrie Irving said that comment and others that have preceded it, it doesn't sound like something. It's definitely not the ideal situation for a first-year head coach in Steve Nash.
Yeah, so we were doing a little cleaning around the house, and I thought this might have been a little bit of an interesting thing. And since we're going to be taking a break from video podcasts for a little bit, I thought that I would bring it on. And we have a basketball coach with us, and I know that you played at the high school level, or a good player at the high school level, and this is kind of just a glimpse into to what an SEC program kind of looks like and what I got to experience on a day-to-day basis. So you can add in, some things that maybe are similar to what you've experienced, or things that are totally new, or, whatever it is. But so basically it's going to be backwards for you. When we have the recording, it will flip. But this is what you get when you show up to a game in the SEC. So basically what they give, and wow, I'll just kind of read it to you a little bit, is so you show up to the arena, usually like an hour and a half before the game, and this tells you, so 60-minute clock starts when you get there. So this particular game started at 5:31. So 60 minutes before the game started is 4:25. They go through, okay, clock time, you go out onto the court with 44 minutes left on the clock. That'd be 4:41, and so on and so on. I don't need to read the whole thing. Gives you the 3 referees, rules about media timeouts for that day, and then who's actually brought out for the post-game press conference after, and who's allowed to approach anybody in the locker room. And the second thing is what we use for preliminary scouting reports, which I thought was pretty interesting. So we take a media guide. It looks like this. This one is particularly thin because this was the second game of the season in the 2017-2018 season against Eastern Kentucky at home. Tells you their scoring averages, field goal percentage, 3-point field goal percentage, rebounds, all the way through, anything you could possibly want to know, turnover margin. It tells you, gives you their probable starters, gives you a full history of the program, what the coaches have done, where they've coached before, where the players have played, where they've played before, where they came from, whether it be another college or a high school. It really gives you everything you need to know to start a scouting report. And I know that that's a really big part of high school coaching. And I was just curious too, if you had seen anything like this, how you guys do it, and kind of what that process is like for you when you're coming up with a scouting report or helping your coaching staff out.
Oh, of course, and that's super interesting. At the high school level, so I'm kind of like this crazy freshman coach, second year coach, that I had a full stat sheet on with the 4 factors, and I did substitution analysis, which everyone was like, John, what are you doing? Like number one, the first team I had was really, really good. Our second team, a couple guys got moved up, and it was not as talented of a team, and our win-loss record showed that. Mm-hmm. But I still would do lineup data, and I would have lineup data on the freshman team, and everyone would say, okay, why are you doing that? And it's okay. Well, now we can see who works best, who works best where, which line. And over the course of a season, we got a pretty good idea of that, to where it helped. I feel like that chart helped us in the playoffs to kind of make lineup specific to what we were trying to do, which I really like that. The one place I really saw these kind of stats being used, and I really liked it, was with a program called TPG Scout School, which you may have heard of. They went bankrupt / don't exist anymore as of 2019. But I went to the last event they ever had in Brooklyn, and we went and scouted 3 college games at the Barclays Center, and we got this huge a book very similar to yours, and we would just go down and scout every single player in the starting lineup. And the following day it was with Adam Filippi, who was a former guest on Gen Z Hoops, former scout for the Lakers, who kind of walked us through and said, okay, what are we looking? Let's try to paint the picture of this player to the GM. And honestly, just that entire world of scouting is very interesting to me. It's not something that I think I have a future in, but it's definitely something that it really piqued my interest, and it did make learning the scouting game and the basics of the scouting game definitely did make me a better coach, because everyone, when you're a kid or when you're first starting as a coach, you don't have to look at a layup line and say, okay, wow, this kid's making shots, this kid's not making shots, he's good, he's not good. But there's so many nuances in it that really, once you start scouting people and you're looking for it in film and not just watching to enjoy, and you're watching to actually figure out, okay, how does this guy play? So you just unlock so much more and understand so much more. So that was definitely like the world of scouting is definitely so interesting to me. And thank you for sharing that, because it's something that I think definitely casual fans or people that maybe aren't in the coaching sphere kind of forget how much work goes into making those scouting reports, especially with 44 minutes to go, we're doing this before the game, and that's fantastic. And as a basketball kind of junkie, it really, those kind of things, it's weird, but they excite me for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way, and that's why I think I have Lee to kind of keep me in line when it gets a little too nerdy and people don't want to hear it. But there's a lot of
sometimes he'll
really,
just go on.
But there's a lot of really interesting tools and resources in coaching that a lot of people don't really know about, and I don't know. I'm curious just to know, and just kind of having a conversation at this point. What do you guys use for film? Are you able to use film at all? How does that kind of, because that's my background is in video coordinating, and so I was really just curious, kind of just as coach to coach, how do you go about using film in your day-to-day work?
100%. So the varsity team uses Huddle. And we used to use Crossover, but then Crossover got bought out by Huddle, so we transitioned back to Huddle. And all the games are up there. They break it down for us, and then our head varsity coach goes in and messes with that. And obviously, I love going in and looking at what he sees, being having done it for 30 years, and seeing what he's able to pick apart from our rivals, and especially too, what I find super interesting is that he finds so many trends. Like he'll reference in a tape a play or a scheme that they're running now that they ran 10 years ago, and he remembers it, and he cites it in the Huddle thing, and we can go back and look at that, which I find super fascinating. So that's great. In terms of for the team that I coach, I for the first time ever, I had every single freshman game recorded. I got an iPad for this specific reason, had the whole tripod set up, and was able to record every single game, upload it to. I did it through YouTube because Huddle's very expensive, of course, especially for a team that doesn't. We weren't getting it through the school budget. So I would upload them all to YouTube in a private playlist, private links to where you needed the link to view the playlist, and I would send it out to every single player. They'd all be able to watch their games. They'd be able to watch the games actually on the train ride home from the game. So the game would finish. I'd pack up the iPad, go into the coach's office while we're giving it'd be in the office while we're giving our pep talk. It'd be uploaded before they even walked out of the gym. So they could be on the train watching film of what literally just happened. Which, if you take too long to get to separate yourself from the game, you might start to forget exactly what it felt like to make that mistake. So it's definitely something I think watching film is the best way to learn, and it's definitely the most efficient way to learn. A lot of guys don't like doing it and they get lazy with it, and it's boring. But when you find guys that really appreciate the game and really love getting better in whatever way they can, they'll definitely make time for it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from having worked with Terrence Davis and Brian Tyree. Two guys that, Terrence Davis with the Raptors, and then Brian Tyree kind of, I think he probably would have stuck on with an NBA roster had we had a full offseason. It's just, those guys are so invested in what they do, and when you see a high school kid that is that invested at the same level as an NBA player, it really is cool. So for me, just having transitioned from from the college game to the high school game, and then you see that same love for the game. It's really a cool thing, and then you're able to maybe not always compare the physical abilities of one kid to a kid that's now in the NBA that you worked with, but you're able to kind of just compare the love, the tenacity, the work ethic of these players, and you start to realize that every kid is capable of putting in that much effort. It's just how much they really love to do it. And that's great what you guys have going on. I think that's really good stuff, and I'm all for film. I'm all about film, and really, really, really fantastic stuff. I love to hear that when I talk to fellow high school coaches.
Oh, for sure.
I'm always with film. I'm a huge football fan. Even though I work with the NBA, I'm huge on football and love watching games every week. But I keep finding it funny how people are holding their play sheets in front of their mouths, even though all the coaches on the sidelines are wearing masks and everything like that. Just speaking of film, like trying to make sure that people aren't reading lips and things like that. But I just think it's too funny. But before we get any deeper into anything like super crazy with basketball, because I know that Sam could probably ramble on and on and on about everything, we want to open up the floor just with the last couple of minutes that we do have for anything that you might want to talk about. I know that previously we kind of talked about, usually you talk about how you've used LinkedIn over the summer to network with all of the past players and coaches that you've had on your show, if you wanted to talk about that, but the floor is open for anything that you want to talk about, John.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I could definitely talk about the LinkedIn stuff because I feel like that's something that most people find unique because no one ever talks about LinkedIn. I feel like it's a very underutilized platform and there's so much potential to really find success with it. Look, the stereotype about LinkedIn is that it's number one, super professional and you need to be a businessman to use it or something to that effect. And B is that all you get is people asking you to buy their product, which is true. It does happen a lot. But I do see a lot of real huge positives with LinkedIn because for me at least, at the start of my show, the whole reasoning behind the show was that I'd met with someone at NBA Entertainment before the pandemic, and he basically looked at it wasn't really a job interview, more so it was through a connection at Xavier, and I got to meet him just to kind of get introduced. And he looked at my resume and said, "Why is lifeguarding on here? Why is your volunteer work on here?" And I said, "Oh, well, that's I'm not." Well, I said it in a better way, of course, at the time, but that I'm 19 and that's what I've done so far. He goes, "Well, he's like, you need to prove to us that you're a freak, that you're a basketball aficionado, that you love the game because everyone can say it." Right, I can come on the show and tell you as many times as I want that I love the game and that I'm passionate and that I watch it all the time. But what does that mean to you? Anyone can say that. What I need to prove is okay. How can I prove it? Adam Filippi from the Scout School event, he had said that he would carry around scouting reports everywhere he went and have those to show for it. If you asked him, what do you know about the international game? Because his whole thing was being an international scout, he would say, okay, here's my entire portfolio of 100 scouting reports that I've done. For me, I have an advantage because it's in 2021, I'm able to just show a podcast on my phone and say, okay, now I can say, look at the kind of guests I've spoken to, who I've interacted with, and what I've learned from that. Because not that I know the game, not that I'm a basketball genius now, but I have at least something to point to and show that say, you know what, I know something about the game, or that I know something about networking with people, or getting guests to like me to end up coming on the show. So when it comes to something like that's kind of what Pete the transition with LinkedIn and what was so powerful was I needed a guest because I was doing these player breakdowns to show how I knew the game and realized that it wasn't interesting. I needed someone, I needed a guest to come on and have their audience, have their story, have something unique to talk about. So how am I going to do that though? I have no connections outside of that. I can bring on my old high school coach. I can bring on one of my old trainers was on the Greek national team, and that's cool. But at a certain point, I need to start getting people that I don't know and networking, which is a scary word for college students everywhere because we hear it shoved down our throats all the time. But really, it's okay. If I DM any of my guests and I would say, hey, can you come on my podcast? They likely wouldn't even have seen it because it would have been in their requests on Instagram. But if they did, they get so many of those a day. It really wouldn't have been unique, and they would have seen my Instagram, like my personal Instagram. It's just weird. Like that's really not how those things happen. On Instagram, if you're verified, sure, that's easier. But for me, it wasn't going to happen. On LinkedIn, though, LinkedIn's built for professionals. So with all these coaches, they're on LinkedIn for the purpose of networking, for the purpose of getting their name out there, for the purpose of building a brand for themselves. When I would come with a unique pitch, like, hi, I host a Gen Z basketball podcast. I'm a 20-year-old high school coach. I was able to use my age as really a tool to tell more about myself in a way that on LinkedIn it was kind of permissible for me to do so. that wouldn't have been available on other platforms. And then kind of my biggest tip on like the crazy thing I do on LinkedIn, really to help with all these guests is, I started off with 50 connections around June, and they were all my closest friends. A few months later, I probably had broken. It probably took me about 2 months to break 1,000, and then now I'm closing in on 3,000. We'll see, and they're all basketball professionals. And the reason being that it's been able to grow at such a rate is because I went through every single team, right? Every NBA team, every WNBA team, every EuroLeague team, every G League team, ESPN, The Ringer, Nike, New Balance, everything I could find, every basketball related company I could find on LinkedIn, and connected with everyone on their page. Now, of course, not everyone's going to connect with me back, so now I have to get creative. How do I make them connect with me? Well, there's a couple of reasons. I can leave them a personalized note, which takes some time, but if I really want them, that's the step I'm going to have to take. Or B, if just by over time, I'll accumulate more mutuals with them. If I have 2 mutuals with someone, it's not surprising they're not going to connect with me. If I have 150 though, because I've done it so many times, now the chances go up. Now on Instagram, when someone doesn't follow you back, you unfollow and refollow as many times as you want to remind them, hey, follow me back, follow me back. LinkedIn's smart and they don't want you doing that, so what they do is when you withdraw a connection request, they make you wait 3 weeks to give it back. Fine. LinkedIn's trying to stop me. It's not going to work, because my workaround for that is that I open up I send out probably about 1,000 connections a month at least, and they're all different people in the industry. I open up all 1,000 of those in new tabs, obviously one by one, because my computer would burst into flames if I didn't segment it. But I have them all open in new tabs. I save them as bookmarks, right, in a folder titled the day that it happened. So today's the 25th. If I did a wave of them today, they'd be in a folder called the 25th, and then 3 weeks from now, sometime in the 20s of February, I'd go back in there and connect with them all again. And hey, guess what? In the meantime, what probably ended up happening was I grew the show even more and had some more cool guests on, so the show's more lucrative. Or I added a new experience to my LinkedIn because I picked up another internship or another opportunity. Or I gained another 50 mutuals with you, so now you kind of feel like you know me, even though you don't. So that's really been the kind of the method to my madness in terms of using LinkedIn to build the show. And it's something I love to share, because no one, like, I've never heard, like, that was just something I came up with when I saw how LinkedIn does that. I was like, wow, okay, that's how they're going to stop me. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I just have to wait 3 weeks. That's all they're doing is making it is inconveniencing me. Like, it'd be great if they didn't have that feature, but then everyone would do it. What I love about it is that it takes me more effort, but that's why I'm able to find success in it, because I'm the 1% that's willing to send follow-up connection requests and do all that work. And I would hope it continues to pay off in the long term, where it really aids me in that networking process.
I thought I was a LinkedIn expert. Jeez. Now I'm just like, I gotta write all this down. Luckily, we've got this on recording, so I can reference it later. I'm trying to send out as many LinkedIn requests as I can right now. Still trying to learn about like all these different industry, like especially with, I'm trying to go to law school. I'm studying for my JD and everything. Want to get into sports and law entertainment, like all that kind of stuff. And I'm just trying to add everyone I can. And I think that it's also really interesting that in a lot of different types of like career paths, a lot of people, like some people aren't as open to helping like as others. And I think that the sports industry is one of those industries where people are really willing to like help you out if you're young and you're trying to break into the industry. A lot of people will connect with you, and like if you just want to chat for a couple of minutes just about like their experience and ask them a couple of questions, people are so open to it. And I think that that's something that's really incredible. I know that I've connected with a couple of people in the past couple of weeks and just done a bunch of informational interviews just over phone call. I've had people connect with me, and I don't even think that I'm that influential within the business, and they just want to hear about my experience and ask me a couple of questions. But I think it's definitely one of those communities that everybody's just like, yeah, go ahead and connect with me. I've rarely gotten somebody being like, who are you? Like, I don't want to connect with you, or not gotten some kind of reply back. But now I need to go on LinkedIn. I'm like, buzzing to like log on right now.
John, I'm curious to. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Oh, can you edit that? I was gonna just piggyback off what Larry just said. I was gonna take it a step further in saying that the sports industry is definitely one of those industries where networking is definitely promoted, and you hear about it everywhere. Maybe some other industries. I have friends that are you're trying to get into med school or law school, and it's a little like networking's a little bit different, just because it's not really about, in those professions it's more about what you know than who you know. In the sports industry, it's all about who you know. Like I would like to think I know basketball, but it's really what mostly will probably will carry me through my career is the fact that I've built connections that can vouch for me in knowing basketball than it is so much that I actually can. What is there such thing as passing a basketball test I mean, of course I could maybe have a vast knowledge of stats and coaching and all that, but it's very hard to quantify that like the way it is in some other professions. In the sports industry, it's a lot about who you know. But what I would say about that is your age is definitely a tool or maybe even a weapon to really showcase yourself. And when I got to that event, I was 19 years old. I was scared that I wouldn't be taken seriously. What ended up happening was the flip side was I was 10 times more interesting because I was the youngest person in the room, which is something that I was scared of at first. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go there and everyone's going to be so much better than me and it's going to be so scary. And then I get there and everyone's like, oh my God, you're so young. And then concurrently that same day I had to coach a basketball game and Xavier's 15 minutes from the Barclays Center. I jumped on the train halfway through the conference to go coach a game. I thought it'd be a bad thing, but I mean, I didn't know any better because when I came back, all everyone cared about was how did the game go? Did you guys win? What happened? Right? Mm-hmm. And there's a really so definitely the sports industry has that community there, and everyone kind of wants to help each other out. At the same time, I feel like you need to have something to offer both ways. There has to be a way to provide value. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from one of my guests, Kevin Tarker, who's a sports agent, and he's very big on this whole networking idea. He has his own podcast where he kind of gives these sports business tips every single day in Sports Business Daily, or no, that's the publication. It's Sports Business Secrets. But he does a great job of always talking about how can you provide value. Now, to be completely honest with you, does my show get thousands of listens to where when Tommy Shepard came on as the GM of the Wizards, did he get that much publicity? Probably not. It's not that I provided value to him in that way. But I think what's bigger is the fact that I made an effort to, because Tommy Shepard gets emails from everyone. He gets people asking for jobs all day long. I had people in my sports business club ask me, hey, can you send Tom an email asking for a job for me? And I was like, that's not, like, he's never going to respond to that. That's just not how it works. If I reached out to Tommy Shepard and said, hey, Tommy, I'm John, I'm 19, I'm from whatever, I'm super passionate about basketball, can I get a job? There's no way he'd ever respond to me, ever, in a million years. Because there's probably keywords. So when someone says, can I get, it probably immediately goes to the spam folder. He probably has that set up somewhere. Because that's all he gets asked. Right. But because I kind of offered him something, even though it wasn't, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, my show doesn't get thousands of listens, it was still an attempt at saying, hey, Tommy, how can I provide you value? Let me try, here's a platform I created. I'm trying my best to do something that helps both of us. That's what made him respond. And that's the same thing with all my guests. There's so many of my guests where if I ask them for a job or for advice, they might be willing to respond. They also might not. So it really goes both ways. And that's something where I think that it's another thing, like I said, with the LinkedIn messaging for it allows people that really will go that step above to really stand out.
Mm-hmm. So what's your big goal? What is it that you want to achieve in the basketball world? If you don't know right now, that's totally fine. But I'm really curious about if you had it your way, how would things pan out for you?
So my immediate answer to this is always I want to be an NBA GM, and I mean it's really not something that I'm 100% confident in being so young. I know I can change my career 10 times in the next 5 years and be 100% okay. And that's the beauty of having that the advantage of being young, of course. I'm taking a referee. Once we get off this call, I have a referee class at 7:00. I don't plan on being a referee, but I want to learn about that. But I am confident though that if I wanted to become a referee and I dropped everything and tried to do that, I could be a really good referee. And if I dropped everything, went into refereeing, and then realized that wasn't going for me, and I went back into coaching, I'd be just fine. Or maybe I just said, basketball's not for me, and I did something else. I'd still be okay. That's not going to happen. Basketball's my life. I'm fully committed to the game. But if that were to happen, I'm confident that that's the perk of being young. If I was 60 years old, I probably wouldn't be able to have the same confidence and say I could change my careers that easily. Mm. But still, that's. I do try to keep it flexible, but the quick answer for me is to be an NBA GM just because that's the pinnacle and that's the hardest thing, and that's what everyone. If you ask anyone that really has no idea, it's someone that's into sports, and you ask
everyone wants to be a GM.
Everyone, because that's just you're the gatekeeper. And the way Tommy Shepard explained it was, I'm the gatekeeper of a team, and I thought, wow, that's so cool. Like everything, like the idea of being like the caretaker for a team, and like everything about that team goes stops and ends with you. That's insane to me, and. Of course, that gets me excited, but maybe once I actually get there and I'm an assistant or I'm an intern in the front office, where I think the front office is for me. Maybe once I'm actually there and I'm there in person, it ends up not being for me. But I'm pretty confident that that's where I want to go.
That's amazing.
I don't have any hiring power or anything. I'm not like an important person, but like I want to hire John for something. I don't know what it is, but I want to hire him. You're hired. Like I don't know what for, but that like nailed it. I'm just like, yeah, this kid is. I'm like, and I say kid. I'm like what 4 years older than him, and I feel like I'm like 30 years older. But no, that's such a great answer though, and you're right, everybody wants to be a GM. And my undergraduate in my sports business class, our program director was like, so what does everybody want to do with their life? And all 50 participants were just like, we want to be GMs. So that's 100% accurate. But no, I mean, clearly you've got your head screwed on correctly and you know what you want to do, so you're gonna go far. I'm confident about that already.
Yeah, I'll just say though, it's interesting that yeah, I think maybe going into this that Leah and I kind of had this assumption that you and I would have more in common than you and her. But I think
I feel like we've got more in common. Yeah,
because
with
the coaching stuff, we definitely have that in common.
Yeah. But you know, I'm looking to coaching college, and it's a totally different, you know, experience in a. But anyway, you know, I think that so many people have offered such great advice, and it's always nice to hear what other people have said. And I think one of the best things that has ever been told to me when it comes to trying to get back into college basketball, and I won't say who told me, but if he sees this, I'll know it's him. But that the most important thing you can do is maintain the relationships that you currently have, because maybe they're not doing anything for you right now. And of course, it's not about getting people to do things for you, but you know, maybe they can't hire you this year or the next or the year after, but maybe in 10 years when you've gotten a little bit further down the road, they can do something for you. And to stop sending so many blind emails, which was a mistake that I was making in my first couple years out of college. And so to hear you say in college that you have kind of already figured out, you know, a way around that, and a way to avoid those sorts of emails and introducing yourself to people like that's really cool. And one thing I want to tell you about, and maybe you already remember, but I wasn't told about it for a little bit, is the National Association of Basketball Coaches.
Okay.
And they have a conference every year at the Final Four that I go to, and that's where I've met most of my connections. Is unfortunately I only got to do 1 year because last year it got canceled from COVID, but I brought a business card that just was very short to the point. This is what I've done. This is who I did it for. These are my recommendations, on a little card. And I just passed it out to as many people as I possibly could. And, you know, most people, if not all, that year couldn't do anything. But a lot of the conversations I was having with people leading up to this year, before COVID kind of derailed some avenues for me, a lot of those people were just willing to talk. And so it's a really cool thing if you ever get a chance to go do that, especially if the Final Four ever comes into your area, which it very well could. Well, I guess that's another thing to get into another time, of what kind of stadiums they'll do the Final Four in and which ones they won't. But, you know, it's really something that was worth the time, the money, everything to go and experience that. And just to see a Final Four was really cool. And so that's something I would suggest you. They have a lot of really cool resources, and I actually don't think it's too late to sign up if you want to do it virtually this year. They're doing it. You can sign up at nabc.org, I believe it is, and become a member, go to this virtual event where you get to network and learn from some of the best coaches in the game. And it's really an awesome experience. And, you know, for me, I got to see a lot of old friends too. So it becomes kind of a reunion every year when you know a lot of people that go. It's really cool.
Of course, and I just looked it up on the side. It's not the Final Four is not coming to New York for at least the next like 5+ years, which is kind of upsetting. But hopefully, you're right, that's able to happen soon.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Minneapolis and from Los Angeles, and it was worth every penny and worth that entire week to just get to meet so many coaches that I looked up to. Like, I think one of the coolest moments for me, and this is a question I'm going to ask you right after so I'll propose the question, answer it to give you some time, and then you can answer it. But kind of a moment where you felt, I don't want to say you didn't belong, but just like kind of a moment where you felt like, wow, this is a really cool thing that's happening to me right now. And for me, it was when I met Coach Josh Pastner from Georgia Tech. I saw him on an elevator at this conference, and poor guy, probably thought I was stalking him. He was like on the phone with his wife or something, and I followed him up and down the escalator, and eventually I was just like, I'm sorry, Coach Pastner, I got to interrupt you for a minute. I got to introduce myself. And he's actually somebody that's been a really huge resource for me ever since I met him, and a really, really nice guy. But that was kind of one of my big moments of, wow, I provide some worth. There's something I bring to the table. People are interested in talking to me. So I really wanted to know what sort of things have happened to you that have made you feel like all this work that you're putting in is really going towards something.
Yeah. Oh my. I mean, I could have just jumped right in because there's so many to pick from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it comes to this, I mean, overall, I mean, for my high school career, it's kind of funny when you kind of introduced me saying I had a great high school career. It was great to me because I got cut from the freshman team as a freshman, the JV team as a sophomore, and the varsity team as a junior. And then I was the only person to ever make it as a senior. So to me, it meant a lot. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I didn't have the 1,000-point kind of careers a lot of other people may have had that would quantitate a successful high school career. But what makes it especially successful to me is that I got asked to come back and coach, so I can call both those moments. That if I don't make that team as a senior, and it took a lot of hard work to do that, I'm not doing what I'm doing now because that leads to me not coaching at Xavier, which means to me not making the connections that I made to then even think about making the podcast, to then being where I am now. So it kind of that's the kind of the first moment where that one accomplishment kind of let the domino effects go, started a domino effect. But taking it back to kind of where we are now, I would say the most recent one. I mean, for the podcast, there's so much research done on like how 3% of podcasts make it past episode 7. Everyone kind of gives up around like right there. You get your first few episodes in, you start seeing some success, then your numbers kind of pan out, or you have trouble getting viewers, and everyone kind of stops. I think it's somewhere between 6 to 8. There's like a decimal number as to every single podcast outside of the top 2%, 3% die after that point. So for me, getting out of that getting past those episodes and getting to what I've been able to, the numbers I've been able to get now, is all through the small wins. So I got Alan Stein on. That was huge for me because he was always someone that was untouchable, on a computer, that I would watch on YouTube. It turned into a G League coach, Ty Ellis, fantastic person. Tyrone Nesby, who used to play with Jordan, that was crazy to me. So those were all the small wins. The one that really made me realize that the podcast was actually going to do something for me, and it really kind of justified the 4 months of hard work before that, was getting Tommy Shepard on in October. Right before him was Howard Beck and all these other huge guests that really kind of made me say, okay, I have something going here. But once I actually had one of the 30 people on the planet that has the job I would hope to be in the future, and that almost all my friends, all they say is I want to be a GM. He came on and spoke on my show. That was kind of the moment where I said, okay, wow, like this is what we needed to really get this thing going. And now I've just been kind of riding that momentum up to where we are now.
All I can think about is how this is episode 8 for us, and I'm just like, oh, we made it.
Oh my God! No, yeah, you're right there. No, but this is so the question. I mean, what do you guys? I mean, a lot of shows, right? People in your position would quit right now, right?
Yeah.
It just happens. There's the numbers on that are staggering. But once you guys get to 15, you're unstoppable. I promise. Like it's a wrap.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, speaking for myself, I don't know how Sam feels about what we've been doing, but I've been having a lot of fun, and, I'm super passionate about what we have been talking about, and I find it just interesting to hear Sam's opinion. I mean, I've known Sam since, we're 24 now. I've known him since I was probably 12 or 13. And I don't think that, at the time that we met, I definitely wasn't interested in working in the sports industry. I didn't know what I was going to be doing, but it definitely wasn't sports. And now we're kind of on like parallel trajectories in our careers, I feel like. And it's just been interesting to hear his point of view. It's awesome to be able to have guests like yourself come on and hear your story and hear what you've been going through and what you're passionate about in the industry. So I think we'll definitely make it to 15. Whether or not it's a successful 15 is yet to be debated, but we'll make it to 15 15 episodes.
I can't wait to see you guys get there. Oh my God.
Appreciate it. So thanks for coming on. We usually end like around 45 minutes and we're there, but before you go, quick Super Bowl prediction.
Yes, Super Bowl.
So I'm a little biased because Levante David is one of the athletes affiliated with X2, which is the sports drink company I help work for, like with Kawhi Leonard. So I'm a little biased in saying that I want the Bucks to win. I think they'll win. Obviously it would be huge for Tom Brady, but in terms of just what the Chiefs have done, I mean, just in my short stint of being a really big on football in the last 2-3 years, you really can't count the Chiefs out and be like, okay, well they they're going to go down 20 when the team comes back from down 24-0 in a playoff game, or they're on the ropes so many times, they keep on coming back and having such an explosive offense and a great quarterback and just really everything you need to win a Super Bowl. It's tough to say that they're going to lose. So I would have to pick the Chiefs, but I hope this podcast comes out afterwards, so I'm not held accountable. So I'm not held accountable if Levante wins. So Levante's not mad at me.
We're holding you accountable. You heard it here first, folks. John Hartofilis says that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl.
Levante, please forgive me. But
Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm calling it how I see it, Levante. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you so much, John, for coming onto the podcast. All you listeners out there, make sure that you check out John's podcast, Gen Z Hoops. Make sure you give it a listen. Can you find it anywhere you find podcasts, John?
Yep. I'm in some distribution networks in like Japan and India, just for SEO purposes. So you can pretty much find it anywhere. It's like really I'm trying to get bigger on YouTube with the video version. But like mainly the main things are, of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
For sure. So everybody go to Spotify. Make sure that you hit that subscription button or whatever it is on Spotify and Apple Play, whatever. I don't have Apple Music. But John, thank you again so much. And tune in next week for another episode of Heels on the Court.